Chapter 3, We Have Crossed the Walls. We had finally departed the port of Charleston. Captain Butler was now leading this adventure, of which we calculated through a few stops and with enough provisions, that we'd reach the cold Antarctic waters in about 140 or 150 days maximum. When we left, we all had a mixture of excitement and panic, due to everything we had experienced in the previous days. We also weren't very sure about why Butler had hidden himself in that way. Have we become the enemies of a powerful force, of whom we'd have to face for real? Butler had mentioned another race. What have we really gotten ourselves into? The days had passed and everything was going well for us. We had provisions to spare and the crew encouraged each other. Beyond some sporadic storms, the ship withstood the winds very well, and when crossing the equator we made a couple stops and stocked up again by order of the captain. He told us the trip would be longer than we expected, in the case of crossing the South Pole. We never quite understood how long the captain was referring to. We really thought he was exaggerating. We also were able to bring with us some boxes of alcoholic beverages. However, the heat of the tropics wouldn't allow us to think with clarity. It was understood that times of darkness and cold were approaching us, in the black waters of the South. The second night before leaving the last direct port to Antarctica, I was on deck looking at the horizon whilst thinking about this adventure I've put myself in. The memories all joined in my mind. Everything and everyone that we left behind, and the idea of going against someone powerful was really worth it. I had an inner fire of curiosity within me, to know of this gateway, and if it really was possible to cross it. I wondered what was on the other side. As I thought of all of this, Butler showed up next to me. "You feel cold already, my comrade. You wouldn't imagine what awaits you then," he said. "So have you been there?" I asked him. "Where, beyond the waters of the South?" "Of course I have," Butler confirmed. "That story you told that one night, was it about you?" I asked. "I was there, William. I saw the gateway, the passage with my own eyes. That's why they're after me." All doubt was leaving my mind. The captain was now telling a clear version of his past trip. The enthusiasm lit up in me and overtook all curiosity. I couldn't wait to fill all my questions. But right there, Butler stopped me as if he could read my mind. He then says, "Don't worry, William, you will see it for yourself. You will see what I saw with my eyes and you also won't believe it. And I don't mean about just the passage. I won't talk about the subject until we get there." The captain closed the conversation again in the best part. "I had so many questions like the ones that you, the reader, must have right now. But I promise they'll be answered in time." The inquiry was eating me from inside. And my face turned red like the setting sun in the horizon. After 138 days, we were now at the freezing waters. The sudden difference was shocking. The water was dark and dreadful like the angry waves that were hitting us. The storm of which was following us for almost 8 days now, was getting worse. The captain was calm through all that, and this would give us some reassurance. However, every time a wave hit our boat, on our minds, we couldn't help but remember our warm home we were leaving behind. However, I trusted this mission. I knew that somehow this would give us its fruit. We crossed a huge mountain that we had as a reference to know where cold and warm winds would mix even in the snow. Just as strange as the waters we were sailing. It's very difficult to describe this place, it's just unique. It was a beauty that makes you fall in love, even being aware of that in a second you could lose your life due to the masses of ice that were floating around. Later we were sailing next to a giant ice wall that showed up out of nowhere. We calculated that it was around 260 or 290 feet high. In some areas there was even peaks, some were higher but it was impossible to see. The sleet allowed us to see up to a certain height. What we were seeing shocked us all, except for the captain who had already experienced it. There seemed to be a reddish-yellow color coming from behind, like how you see in the horizon during sunset. It looked like a raging fire from a forest was back there. Near this giant mountain, blocks of ice would fall off, like cotton onto a mattress of ice. This formed an inclined slope along which the snow melted, and cascaded into the sea. The entire image with the fire sky beyond, seemed like a scene from a painting, that people would pay thousands to see. This view was overwhelming with its unique beauty. The deep silence that accompanied the lonely ship was enough for the team to name the ship The Secret. The weather later became inhospitable, it didn't give us any breaks. The fight against the waves and wind was daily. The danger of coming close to hitting any of the giant masses of ice floating around was real. And the sky was like an eternal sorrow that wouldn't come off. So we decided to again get close to the giant wall mountain. The strange heat that emanated from the ice of which it was melting, gave the strange appearance that it didn't fit in, that it shouldn't be there. But it even appeared that it generated a different climate completely. We all decided with the captain to just skirt it as much as possible, and investigate thoroughly this strange portion of the wall. Butler called my name to the deck. A passage or route opened between the giant frozen walls of ice. The joy that enveloped us was inexplicable. However, we couldn't wait there too long against the storm that was fighting us. Butler didn't hesitate for a second to move the ship in that direction, and we were all speechless. The ship was headed into that opening. The captain seemed to know what he was doing. And he moved the ship parallel to the promontory. Then some kind of current pulled us in, without a second thought. Some kind of insane force dragged us in. The fear paralyzed us, we hit the edges of the wall several times. However, all that panic lasted about 5 minutes, but in our heads it seemed to last forever. Suddenly, and with the current that was taking us, the calm appeared to invade our surroundings. The storm ceased, and although the cold continued to haunt us, it was no longer overwhelming. We were in some inexplainable ecstasy. The narrow passage was opening more and more, and later it took us to an open sea. My eyes weren't lying to me, even though I doubted them several times. The captain shouted, "We've made it. We have made it." And so we all celebrated with pure surprise and amazement. We were now in waters that only few have reached. Or so, we believed. The dark waters began clearing up, the ice walls could still be seen, but they were disappearing in the distance. The sun that contemplated our feet was falling on the horizon, it was time to celebrate. I gathered the team by order of the captain, who called us all with some seriousness. He was going to make an important announcement. He started by saying that everything they've achieved wasn't about him, or about the crew, nor about the known world we've left behind. This was about the entire humankind and its past.